So we are the Chaplaincy Institute, an interfaith seminary, which most of you know us quite well, but for any of you who don't know us as well, we have been doing training of chaplains and spiritual directors for about 24 years now. Our ordination and endorsement is recognized by the Association of Professional Chaplains. So a lot of people come through our program, like a couple who are with us now, to go into professional chaplaincy work. And if you have any questions at all about our chaplaincy program or our spiritual direction program, which is the other program we are happy to schedule a one-on-one conversation with you and answer all of your questions. We also have an open house that's offered on the first Tuesday. Today's the 4th. It's the 2nd, isn't it? The second Tuesday of every month. So you can come back to an open house on the second Tuesday if you want to hear more details about our programs. So I think I will introduce the two people who are present, who are scheduled to share, as well as myself, and then I will start us off with our opening. But one of them is Mark Estes, who also goes by Doryu. And Mark was graduated from the program. I think we figured out in the fall of 2012 from the chaplaincy program. And thank you for being here, Mark. And Mark still works as a chaplain and does all kinds of other things you'll probably hear a little bit more about. And Kathie McCutcheon, I don't remember when you were ordained by ChI. I think we talked about it.
It was 2010.
2010. So yeah, 2010 and still working, I know. And we love having our alumni here. There are many others of you as well. And maybe when you share, we don't usually do introductions in this session, but let's say that when you do jump in and have something to share, please do introduce yourself in your relationship to the Chaplaincy Institute if you like when you do that, because I'm looking around and knowing most of you, but not all of you, but you all may not know each other. So whenever you do speak, please say a word or two or three about yourself when you do that. But I want to start us off with something I hope you will enjoy as much as I did, which is the first 11 minutes of the Parliament of World Religions. Because I got all the videos, they're on YouTube. I think you can access them. And the first 11 minutes is all set up and ready to go. And I will warn you, there is almost no talking. So what you will be having a little bit of is a bit of an immersion into the experience, sound, sights, music, people that were all there to open up the whole event. So I'm going to share my screen and we will participate in that together again.
Welcome to the 2023 Parliament of the World's Religions, celebrating 130 years of the Parliament in Chicago.
So that was the beginning of it all. And I hope you could feel that sense of joyous excitement of thousands of people gathered from across the world for shared visioning, values, love, compassion, and concern about the state of the world. So that's our beginning. And who would like to take us from here and talk about your own experience?
Sure. Okay. Well, I guess I think those of us who were there might have had that same experience of, you might have thought that you had a plan for the parliament and you would work hard to like make your schedule, but you might find that you were pulled off to the direction that you needed to go, to the people that you needed to meet, people you needed to see, experiences you needed to have. So I'd be interested to see if that was a shared experience of everyone. So this was actually my third parliament. I had been to the last one in Toronto and then the one before that in Salt Lake City. But for some reason, this one was just it felt more, I don't know, there was just something special about this one for me. And I have actually done a worship service for a Unitarian Universalist congregation where I talked about the history and mission of the Parliament, and I talked about my own experience. So I showed them some YouTube highlights, and I showed them my own PowerPoint presentation and my photos that I took. And so I've actually, gotten so far into it that I've ordered books, the history of the Parliament, and all of the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. So I'm really into it, and I'm preparing for another worship service on Sunday. So just some highlights and, my takeaways were, so this is just an example of one day. One day I was in a room waiting for Amma, one of the divine mothers, the living saint, for a holy blessing, a divine blessing from her at 8 a.m. And then at 7 o'clock the same night, there was a wonderful gospel choir performance in that same room. And outside there was a gathering of a pagan ritual. So that was all happening at the same time at 7 o'clock at that night. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting that, at one time in the morning, there's a Hindu saint, and then there's a Christian gospel choir, later that same evening. And so my experience that day was just the experience of devotion and seeing how all of the devotees of Amma, knelt before her and received their blessing. And then later that same evening, I witnessed just the devotion of the Christian choir. And, I saw them crying and having a lot of emotions as they sang. And it was that same sort of devotional experience. So I've been thinking a lot since then about devotion and also dedication, and how everyone who spoke, who was there, who is so dedicated to their faith path and to service in the world. So devotion, dedication. The other thing is hope. It was a very hopeful, optimistic gathering, I thought, and it was an active hope, as Jane Goodall would say, that people are, taking action. So those were kind of my 4 words that will stay with me. And I loved Carrie's email to us to say, let's not just talk about like a rundown of what you did at the Parliament, but what are you taking with you? And I think what I'm taking away, and an experience that I had was just this experience of personal conversations with people who told me about their experience of basically despair and how that led them to an experience of God. And I'm not going to talk about that, in public. It was a shared experience, but it's really made me think about, it's just started the wheels turning on, this despair, and how when you surrender everything, the experience of the divine comes in. And certainly I got that from the Alma experience and from the gospel choir, and from my personal conversations, just somebody random in the exhibit hall, and then a couple of other people in one of the sessions talking about when you hit rock bottom, that's when God comes. So, just that surrender. And I think, that was an experience of the Parliament, is just surrendering yourself to the larger experience, and, just leaving your agenda, and knowing that you'll be led to exactly who you need to meet and what you need to learn and experience. And I think I will leave it there and let other people talk.
Thank you, Kathie. This was my second Parliament of World Religions. My wife, Susan, who is also in on this Zoom call, is joining us today, and she was with me for both times. They both had a different kind of feel. And so I thought I would just share some of the differences and something and some of the meaningful things. Many of you know that I'm from Texas. And in Texas, we like things big, and we like tall tales. And certainly something like that plenary video that we just watched with a 100-foot-long dragon and music and 100 people on stage is big, and it captures your attention and your emotions, and you can't help but be pulled in because of the size. But here's what I learned at this Parliament of World Religions, is that out there on the edges, there were small things that were very meaningful that were happening. And if you didn't pay attention, someone might say, how was the Parliament of World Religions to you? And you say, oh, it was okay. There was a big parade and a lot of stuff, a lot of people in different costumes and many religions represented. But what I wanted to emphasize and share a little bit about are 3 of the little things that I saw that made a big difference to me. And I'm going to share my screen with you, just so. So I'd like to share, one day I was walking through the convention center, and I see this woman, and she's sitting on the ground with a deflated life raft, trying to pump it up. And I couldn't help but think that she needed some help, so I walked over to her and helped her with the pump. And she invited me to come out to her installation that she had put together for people to see as she protested gun violence and the deaths of so many children who had been killed in school shootings and things of that nature. And the thing that was interesting to me was that I didn't know what this person was all about, and I was just trying to give someone a hand. What happened was, she's an excellent recruiter, and she put me to work, and I made and installed this sail on the raft and ended up having an opportunity to watch her work. And I have to tell you, it gave me chills. She was so dedicated to letting people know that there were ways to act, and there were ways to commemorate so many people who had died. And these are some of the ways people memorialized. They used notes on orange fabric. Everything you've noticed here is orange, and orange is the color for representing the tragic gun deaths that happen. It is supposed to represent the orange hunting vests that hunters use when they're out in the forest or in the woods. as a way for them not to get shot and to be safe. And so it's being applied to this cause of being aware of and protesting gun violence. And I just wanted to share that because here's one person. She wasn't listed on the brochures. She was invited at the last minute to come and share her campaign called Enough. And she gave herself full-heartedly. And if people weren't paying attention, they might just walk right by and not know what this woman with all this orange fabric was doing. And this was the first example that I started to take note of. What are the chances of her succeeding? This is a tremendously large problem, social issue, and justice issue about gun control and protecting our children in schools. And yet here she is, really moving to me that she's out there, one woman, putting together all these installations. And I just thought, wow, how does a person have that energy? I watched her recruit people and involve people, and I felt that she was very successful in her work. And this was one of the first highlights to me. The other thing was I found an artist by the name of Saad Ghosn. He's Lebanese. And he does these woodblock prints that are dedicated to justice issues. He helped found the SOS Foundation in Cincinnati, Ohio. Save Our Soul is what it stands for. There is no money exchanged. He, at first I had a chance to ask him, what galleries are you in? And how much do you sell these prints for? They are absolutely top-notch, gorgeous and beautiful. And to my surprise, he was not interested in selling or displaying from the point of view of artists just trying to bring attention to themselves. He was completely dedicated to using his artwork to make a difference, social justice issues. And I have to tell you, his work was displayed in a kind of an obscure, out-of-the-way place. It was not professionally hung or displayed. I don't think the Parliament gave him the materials to do that, but he went ahead and did it anyway. And this is what I came to recognize. It's something that Parker Palmer, the Quaker teacher, talks about, the difference between effectiveness and faithfulness. You can be working for a cause and just feel completely overwhelmed by the prospect of really, you may not be able to solve this problem of climate change or systemic justice or all of the many other issues that we deal with. And so instead of analyzing and evaluating and measuring yourself with how effective you were, how successful you were, what the results were, what would happen if you were faithful? You were in the face of big tasks and challenges that you ask yourself, am I being faithful against all odds? Am I being faithful to meeting the needs that have been presented and using my gifts to be able to serve? Or do I run away in fear, thinking this is something that just can't be done, can't be accomplished? And I think that is a revelation that these two artists, Jacqueline van Eldenberg and Saad Ghosn, are doing, is just little steps. Kind of like, I think every spiritual practice talks about just taking one breath, one step. And so this was demonstrated to me and inspiring to me. And finally, on a grander scale, was the Sikh practice of langar, rhymes with hunger, and it's a free kitchen. And every day, the Sikhs would provide full lunch meals for thousands of people each day, with no need or ask in regards of money or donations. And this practice is a spiritual practice. But, you know, I walked into the tent and I felt like, you know, I'm just excited. Here's Crystal Blue up in the front, and there's Susan, my wife. And then at the end is Carol Dolezal and the ChI contingent at lunch. And we just had a great lunch. They really take care of you in the same way that they would if you were entering a gurdwara. You have a washing station where you wash your hands. You have a station where you put on ceremonial scarves as a way of showing respect. And you go on into the whole hall after you've taken your shoes off. And you are fed just amazing food. And people from all over the world and all kinds of religions come in. And, you know, it was fun to get lunch, but I noticed this guy right here each day. As he walked down the rows of people seated and eating, he was chanting. He was chanting a Sikh chant. And just the act of his serving food was a reflection of his devotion to everyone that was there, the spiritual devotion to all. And I started looking around and feeling a real visceral sense that this is one of the most beautiful gifts that could be given. And in essence, as a result of that, they were able to share their portable gurdwara in this giant tent, to share their music, and to allow us as their guests to get a bit of an experience of what it might be like to receive their spiritual practice. So, you know, I just feel like paying attention to the little things that are on the periphery so that you can take that back with you as another little one single person, and to be able to apply this question, am I being faithful? And asking yourself, even on the days when you might feel down or discouraged about the cause or the spiritual practice that you're working with, this is my job. This is my job. May we all take that kind of faithfulness out with us, is my takeaway from these three examples.
Thank you, Kathie, and thank you, Mark. And would anybody else who was at the Parliament like to share their experience? Wakil, Casey? Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I was thrilled to be there, as really mostly with the Dances of Universal Peace group in my Sufi practice, but I also got to hang out as the ChI gang. My name is Wakil David Matthews. I'm ordained as a Shirag in the Sufi community, which is a minister, and I graduated right at the beginning of COVID, basically. That's how I remember. but we did dances there every day. And I think I can share my screen. I'll just share a quick video of the dances real quick so you can see if you don't know what they are. So we had outdoors, we had 3 sessions in the afternoons that were programmed, and like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we had up to 300 people in those sometimes. It was so wonderful just to have anybody who walked by was just invited in. And it was just a sense of that, again, the opportunity to share our community and our breath and the man who founded the Dance of Universal Peace said we need to eat, dance, and pray together to find peace. Samuel Lewis. So that's what I was doing most of the time. We also had pop-up dances. So we had dances inside and other areas too, and a lot of there were dances all over the place. And I was playing some music with them. I got to play my little bass ukulele, which was really fun. So, but I think, as others have said, one of the things about the whole experience was just the openness and acceptance of whatever came, and just everybody we met along the way. My wife was with me, and we both noticed that no matter who you're talking to, they've got, they're writing a book, or they're doing the work they're doing. It's just so inspiring and full of hope to know that there's 7,000 plus people there, and probably any one of them, if you set aside a few minutes to get to know them, you'd get to hear their story and what they're doing in the world. And it was very, very inspiring and very beautiful. I was very glad to be there and glad to see my ChI buddies.
Yeah, thank you, Akil. I'll say something. And first, thank you for the Dances of Universal Peace. I completely loved participating in those, and just participating in lots of different sacred rituals, which I love sacred rituals. So, wow, a week of doing several every day. I was in heaven. There are all the dances. There were all the pagan circles. There were the Christian gospel singing, the Matthew Fox's Cosmic Mass. I think there were almost 1,000 of us in that. I have this, the communion that was like the universal communion with all the different faiths offering this was so gorgeous. And then part of that was they had images like that seemed like they were from the Webb telescope, only they were moving. You just felt like you're part of the cosmos. And I remember spending a lot of time dancing in front of those where the projector would go and cast the shadows of people's hands and arms against the cosmos. So we're dancing in the cosmos with the galaxies, with the nebula. It just was transcendent. And there were other things that were more talking head panels, and some of those were incredibly inspiring. What else? I think those relationships with unexpected connections with people from all over the world were so beautiful. And I'm following up with one woman in particular who I kept running into, and that feels potent and important. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I'm just so excited that I went, and I'll leave with this one image of I'm walking behind a druid with like the cap and the cane and the cape, and he's walking this way, and then a man and a woman in all white Sikh garb walking this way, and I see them just kind of smile and nod at each other, and I just feel so moved by all of us open and loving with each other. It's very beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Casey, I just want to follow up and say one of my favorite things being there was walking down that very long hallway to get to where the auditorium of all the events was. And every time walking by somebody, almost always, there was this beautiful smile between back and forth. We don't know each other. We don't know anything about each other. And just this beautiful love coming forth from each person that you make eye contact with. Not everyone, but so much of that. So. Would anybody else like to share more? Deb. If you like, you don't have to.
Sure. I was so taken by the earth altar. There was a woman's section with colorful weavings hung all around the space. There was a session that I didn't go to that was about starting to build this earth altar, which was a round table, a large round table with a white cloth on it, that people started to place objects that they had brought, and the creator of this concept brought some things and put around the edge. But to see that take shape over time and be adjusted, it was just magic for me. There was, I live in a rural area, and there was a small contingent from a city called Petoskey, where I lived for 10 years. And it was just astounding to see how much change was coming, that little Petoskey, Michigan would have a small delegation to the parliament. So that was really cool. And I'll say one thing. I was, I don't know, sobered by how many sessions there were overlapping and interleaving. And I sat in on a panel on peace and justice with 3 excellent speakers. 2 had come from the Middle East, one from a Muslim country, one from Israel. And the third one was a person from Italy. And they had all had in-depth experience with kind of trying to bring peace to hot places. And there were 12 people there. And the expense of, coming all that way, preparing, yeah, it just was like, there was so much that sometimes I'm not sure that some of it got the participation that it really maybe deserved. And the facilitator, I thought this was really bold on his part, or the moderator, I should say. He said, the parliament is a colonial project. And I'm like, I love it that someone named that how you have to have a certain level of privilege to even participate in these events, because you've got the travel involved, unless you're living in the place where it's held. You've got the meals, you've got the fee for the parliament, and it is pretty huge for a lot of people. So I just found it refreshing that not everything is just light and roses, that we have to be willing to look at the not so beautiful side of that too. And I think one of the presentations that really moved me a lot was Lauren was there because the person from Argentina was part of a URI, United Religions Initiative Cooperation Circle. And she was an indigenous woman, one of the Inca peoples from Argentina. And she had come there to do a Pachamama ceremony. And you might know that Pachamama is a term for Mother Earth. So very small person in stature. She had a translator who was an urban Indigenous person, but she was so modest. We were inside. It was a relatively small room, and it was absolutely packed. And that was so affirming, I felt, for her. And everyone was so respectful. At some point, she asked everyone who was associated with URI to stand up and be recognized. And then after that happened, she asked any Indigenous people in the room to step forward in front of her. So there was, I think it was a Lakota man, there was a woman from Hawaii, several other people. And I think she thought, so anyway, the ceremony was ritually at that time of year that they would open the mouth of the mother, and they would, around that mouth, they would put candles, they would put Coca-Cola bottles, they would put flowers, they would put whatever was at hand that symbolized for them life and what they wanted to feed back to the mother who feeds us every day. And she had a video of what this actually looked like among her people. And then at the end, she said, well, I'm going to go out, and our custom is to feed this food back into Mother Earth and to close her mouth up. And I think she thought she was going to be doing that by herself. And she said, I think if anybody wants to come with us, you're welcome to do so. And almost everyone went. And we went down the hall in procession. And it was so interesting that people who looked like they were from North America went on talking with, or, you know, whatever they were involved with. And some of the sick people, some of the others noticed that something was happening, and they stopped and they stood up as we passed. So that was really beautiful. We went outside and we went to a tree, Lake Michigan in the background, and everyone was invited to help open up the mouth of the mother there. And I don't have a really great sense of smell. It had rained so hard the day before, just this huge thunderstorm. And when that mouth was opened, I felt like I got smacked in the face by the richness of just that scent of rich soil. It was really dark and not just dirt, it was soil. It had living qualities in it. The Lakota man browsed, on the way as we were processing, there was, I think, some Wicca people there, and they were drumming and singing as we processed. And then they loaned the Lakota man their drum. And while we were putting this food into the mother's mouth, he was drumming and singing a song that was significant to him for that. And then we closed up the mouth of the mother and, went on our way. But a lot of people just lingered. I kind of stepped back a little bit and wanted to take a photo from a distance. And people were still gathered around that tree. And it was, a beautiful image to take away. Thanks.
Thanks, Deb. I'm going to put something in the chat that there was not time to share, but my favorite full plenary session was the last morning, the Climate Action Assembly, the second one. And I will just share the one thing because nobody's talked about it yet, really. Many people were speaking to the climate disaster, global scorching, as people were calling it, and that spiritual leaders are called to work with that. So I'm going to share the link that's on YouTube, and If you don't want to watch the full 2 hours of it, scroll through and watch Reverend Gerald. I forget his last name, Gerald or Gerard, dynamic speaker with a call to step into spiritual leadership in a time of climate change. So if you're interested in that, here's the link for that. And that's for the whole session. The speaker I mentioned specifically is toward the end of that full session.
I just wanted to share what Deb mentioned about, you know, how many sessions there were and like the difficulties of choosing what you were going to do. And this was just the program book. And then there was an insert with changes, and then there was an app. So, you know, just so many things to choose from each hour of each day. You know, so I've been going, I just wanted this as a resource, you know, to go back to, you know, to look up things and research things as well. So I just wanted to show that to people. But it's been interesting to go back after the Parliament, like I was saying, like looking back at the history. And I think it's just fascinating, you know, when you see how things have changed since 1893, talking about the colonial project and, you know, what it was like then, and like how women have been incorporated into the Parliament, women and Indigenous people, and how it always responds to the times, you know, what is pressing in that particular time on the globe. So it's been really interesting to go back and learn the history and the significance, because obviously if there was no Parliament, we wouldn't be interfaith oriented. We wouldn't be interfaith ministers and spiritual directors. Like, it's just our kind of, the Parliament is our origin story, I think.
I found this
Yeah.
picture of the earth altar. So like
Mhm. Wow. Gorgeous. I know there are more photos to be shared, and I don't know if anybody has anything posted on some photo sharing site that you can put a link to in the chat, because we only have 3 more minutes. But if there's anything that you'd like to share, please post it in the chat, and people might be able to copy it and see it after this time. I will say that one of the things we also didn't talk about was the Global Ethic, which was a pamphlet that I brought home, which is a statement of ethical, spiritual values that, as it's said in there, are shared across all of our religions, and that it's a call to make a commitment to step into that code of ethics that is universal across the faiths. And it's a beautiful piece of writing. If you want to look it up on the Parliament of World Religions website, the Code of Ethics. Am I saying, is it Code of Ethics? No, that's something different. But it's the, oh gosh, I have the thing right downstairs. The ethic,
Something like toward a global ethic.
that sounds right. Toward a global ethics, something like that. If you look on their website, you will find it. It's a beautiful piece of statement of connection and collaboration for the sake of justice, love, compassion across the globe for all people, for the planet, all species, all of that. So that's also something to look up. And would anybody like to throw one more word in before we close? One sentence.
I'm honored to share this path with you all.
Totally. So good to come home and see some of the same faces here that were there. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of this work on this planet. It is so important. It's so needed. And finding that love, connection, and inspiration from these connection moments, so critical. So keep coming back wherever you come back to find that fuel to keep you going. So thank you. Blessings.
Blessings.
Mm-hmm.